Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Hello and welcome to our great Big Friday Catholic Answers show. I am Cy Kellett, your host, and we really do have a great big show for you. Second hour internet sensation. Father Mike Schmitz will be here to talk about his brand new book, and I mean brand new, Made for Love from Ignatius Press. You're not going to want to miss Father Schmitz. He's just he's an internet sensation. I don't know what else need be said about him. This hour, Pro-Life Open Forum. We talk about any question you might have about the beginnings of life, ends of life, when life is in crisis. All those things are, or maybe about the laws or regulations that are being passed around the world, or some to be voted on soon. Like I'm thinking about Ireland. I think Ireland's got a big referendum coming up on life issues. 888-318-7884, 888-31-TRUTH, if you prefer the spelled version. Our guest this hour is Dr. George Delgado, Medical Director of Culture of Life Family Healthcare. He's a board-certified physician in family medicine and in hospice and palliative medicine. He's also completed the certification program in healthcare ethics offered by the National Catholic Bioethics Center, and he's also our good friend, Dr. George Delgado. Thanks so much for being with us.
You're welcome. It's great to be here, Cy.
Did you participate in any Sanctity of Life Month events? Anything?
I did. It was a busy time. So my wife and I, a couple of weeks ago, went to the One Life LA event, which is becoming bigger and grander every year. It was absolutely wonderful. Started off with a little rally with some speakers and lots of people, including Archbishop Gomez there at the center of LA and downtown at the Old Town, the historic foundation site of Los Angeles. Then we marched about a mile to a nearby park, and there was a big stage with a huge video display with wonderful speakers and just a great feeling of camaraderie and pro-life spirit. So that was a great way to start it off. And the next weekend, we went up to San Francisco for the Walk for Life West Coast, and that is still the biggest event on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Huge crowds there. We started off with a Mass with Archbishop Cordileone at the Cathedral of the Assumption of the Blessed Mother, and then walked down to the Civic Center where we first heard some speeches with the Silent No More awareness campaign that's co-sponsored by Priests for Life and Anglicans for Life. Got to say hello to my good friend, Father Frank Pavone. And then we shifted our attention to the main stage where we had another great set of speakers there who really got everybody fired up and got us ready to march. Then we walked down Market Street, and it was just a beautiful San Francisco day, more like a San Francisco spring day than a winter day, fortunately. And it was really fantastic.
Well, I guess I shouldn't be surprised that you hit all the big pro-life events on the West Coast during the month. A couple questions for you to start with today, because we actually had a caller yesterday call about the situation in Canada, and wanted some help on how do you explain to people that it's not morally right to refer someone for suicide. But maybe you know about the situation in Canada. You can tell us something about that and what the proper response is.
Well, the start off with the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario. And just a little background, in Canada, the licensure and the control of the physicians is not always directly by the government, but these medical societies and colleges have a lot more power than the United States. Where in the United States and in many other countries, they are really professional bodies. And in Canada, they do have more jurisdictional power. And the College of Physicians and Surgeons of Ontario passed a policy that will require doctors to refer patients for medical practices to which they object, especially euthanasia and abortion. And previously, physicians, now it's not, at this point, not forcing physicians to perform euthanasia or abortion, but it's saying they must make that referral. So, of course, this referral would constitute a participation in a grave evil, because all of us who are well-grounded in our natural law and in Christian principles know that abortion is an intrinsic evil, and by that it means that direct abortion is never acceptable. It's always wrong. There are no situations where it can be justified. And euthanasia, the same thing. And by euthanasia, of course, you mean an action or an omission that intends to and does lead to the death of an individual. So that is in contradistinction to withdrawing a treatment that is either futile or that is becoming burdensome. And that burdensome treatment could even include feeding and hydration, and there's sometimes when giving food and water actually hurts the patient. So it does not mean that euthanasia means you're doing something with the intention of killing the patient. So this goes totally against our Hippocratic tradition as physicians and for all healthcare practitioners, where we are called to and we swear to uphold life, protect life, cure disease, save life, and heal patients, as well as treat their symptoms to make them more comfortable. So euthanasia and abortion in no way do that. All they do is end a perceived problem by ending the person's life. So it is a grave and a blatant violation of the conscience rights of these physicians and other healthcare workers in Canada, in Ontario specifically, that they are going to be forced to make these referrals against their conscience. And of course, we know that by doing this, not only are they violating the rights of these individual good physicians, they are also going to be to the detriment of the medical profession and to the care of patients in general. Because any time a physician can be seen or perceived or is a healer and a killer at the same time, then there's no way a patient can put unconditional trust in that physician and do what's best for the patient. The patient is always going to worry about, well, is that doctor going to kill me when he can't help me? Or is that doctor going to pressure me to kill my unborn baby when he feels or she feels that there's no good treatment left for me as a pregnant mother? So it really erodes that really sacrosanct patient-physician relationship, and it does a great harm to the profession, because the profession will start to see itself more in a killing light. And we didn't go into medicine to be killers. We went into medicine to be healers. This policy, fortunately, the physicians fought back, and it went before the courts. But unfortunately, in a 46-page decision, according to LifeSite News, 3 justices, Herman Wilton Siegel, Richard Lococo, and Wendy Matheson, held that, quote, the evidence in the record establishes a real risk of a deprivation of equitable access to health care. But in fact, there's no evidence whatsoever that doctors of good conscience, by not referring for this procedure, is going to lead to decreased access to health care. That's a big lie that's been used here in the United States also in order to try to pressure physicians into making referrals against their consciences. So the court unfortunately upheld the college, and now these physicians are really put in an untenable position. Do they sacrifice their livelihoods and their professional standing by sticking with their consciences, or do they make these referrals and compromise their sincerely and strongly held religious and ethical beliefs? Very sad day in Canada.
Yeah, it seems to be one of the strategies of those who are pushing for medicine to, just freely attack life at all stages. To just say this is standard medical practice, and if you're going to be a doctor or you're going to be a hospital, you got to go along with standard medical practice. That it seems almost like a trick, kind of, or a stratagem.
It is. It definitely is a stratagem. They're saying that modern medicine has to be taking en bloc. Everything that goes along with it, everything that's practiced freely today, must be included in any kind of package of medical care that you offer. So it again, the opponents of life have rewritten the narrative, they've set the rules, and they've made these killing procedures part of either reproductive health rights, is what they call it with abortion, and part of end-of-life care is what they call it with euthanasia. And they've been very clever, and they've been successful so far, but we are not finished fighting back, and we will fight back.
We do have to take a break. Dr. George Delgado is our guest, the medical director for the Culture of Life Family Healthcare. We'll be right back with Open Forum, pro-life Open Forum, your questions for Dr. Delgado right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
This is Archbishop Salvatore Cordileone of San Francisco. Thank you for listening to Catholic Answers Live.
Howdy folks, this is Jimmy Aiken, and I'm here to tell you about the 20 Answers Challenge. Here's how it works. When you purchase the sampler of all 26 books in the 20 Answers series, we're going to knock 60% off the price. Then you can challenge yourself to finish them all this Lent and Easter season. And this year, to make it easier, we're offering free shipping on the sampler if you live in the continental United States. That's 60% off, free shipping, and over 500 answers to questions you've had about the Catholic faith. Join us this Lent and Easter to take the 20 Answers Challenge, and together we can be part of something great. Call 1-888-291-8000 or visit the shop at Catholic.com now to get your set and begin taking the 20 Answers Challenge today.
Wouldn't it be great to have a book to give to anyone to explain exactly why Catholics believe what we believe? The good news is that now there is. Why We're Catholic is the groundbreaking new resource by apologist Trent Horn, that one book you can hand to anyone as a starting point for helping them find their way into or back to the practice of the Catholic faith. Don't miss out on the most important, life-changing book to come along in years. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Do you love praying for people? Have you ever wanted to use your gift of prayer to share Jesus with others and build up the body of Christ? Start a public prayer station with St. Paul Street Evangelization. Listen to people's needs, pray with them, or invite them to meet you at church. St. Paul Street Evangelization can help you get started. Find out how at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, our Super Big Friday show. Dr. George Delgado this hour. Next hour, internet sensation. Father Mike Schmitz will be here to talk about his new book, Made for Love. Lots of calls, and I want to get to the calls, but I have to ask you about something else, if I may, real quick before we go to calls. And maybe real quick is not the way to answer this question, so don't take that as a limitation. But we're hearing news about, in the United Kingdom, this idea that I don't know if it's courts or the government or who is allowing them to make babies that have three parents, that they're made from three people instead of being born of two. You've heard of this?
Yes, and in the UK and in other countries, the government is more heavily involved in regulation of in vitro fertilization and related procedures. So they needed to have this approved by the government agency, and indeed, I think it was yesterday or today, they approved a treatment for mitochondrial disease that will involve the creation of an embryo, a child, with three parents, material from three parents. So people are wondering, how the heck can that happen? Well, first of all, let's just explain what the mitochondrial diseases are. Mitochondrial diseases are something that is really hot in science right now, where we're discovering that a lot of diseases where we didn't know the cause are actually, the cause is being found in genetic deficiencies in the mitochondria. And mitochondria are very small organelles, or very smart parts of cells that are in all of our cells. that are known as the power plants of the cells. They provide the energy for the cells, for everything the cells do. So you can imagine our world right now with all of our electronic sophistication, let's say all of our power plants went down, or a large percentage of them. It would cause a great deal of havoc and problems, right? It would cause a lot of, quote, disease amongst us in our social and business engagements and enterprises. Well, then imagine that analogy applied to a cell that doesn't have enough energy, enough power to do what it should, is not going to be able to do things well. And it's going to lead to a lot of different diseases, including a lot of neurodegenerative diseases, problems with the brains, problems with the nerves, a whole host of things. And so up until now, we haven't had any treatments. So scientists got the bright idea, well, maybe we could somehow replace those genes, which replacing those genes in a person that's already born in and of itself is a noble cause, and ethically in and of itself would not be problematic. But it's a path they've chosen to replace those genes, and in fact, what they've decided to do is via in vitro fertilization, which as Catholics we know is an intrinsically evil way to create a person. That person who's created, of course, is not evil and does not bear any blame for what happened, but that person has the right to be dignified by being created the way God intended, which is through natural intercourse between mother and father. So that right is violated from the get-go, and the new person is created in a test tube or a petri dish in a laboratory. Then, once the nucleus of the mother and the nucleus of the father unite in what's called the pronucleus, before that cell has a chance to divide. So even before it becomes an embryo, at that stage it's called a zygote. But a zygote is just as much a human being as you and I are. It just happens to be the very earliest form of the human being, the one-cell form. Well, that nucleus is removed from the cell, and then it's taken and put into another mother's egg, and that other mother's egg has had the nucleus removed, so it's sort of an empty egg. The analogy I have for this is that imagine if you had a person who had a diseased body but the brain was in good shape. Would you allow them to transplant the brain from the healthy person into the body of a person with a healthy body? Probably not. A lot of ethical problems there. Well, they do this. They transplant that nucleus into that new egg and stimulate it, so then that zygote divides and becomes an embryo and continues on the development. So why exactly do they do this? Well, it turns out that the mitochondria have their own DNA. They sort of have their own little design inside of them. They don't rely on the chromosomes of the main cell. And the mitochondria come exclusively or almost exclusively from the mother's egg. The sperm transmits very little or no mitochondria. And so it's the mother that transmits mitochondrial diseases. And so by taking only the main genetic material from the mother, but not taking her mitochondria, then you can avoid these mitochondrial diseases. But in doing that, you've violated the rights of that new human being by creating him or her outside of the marital bond, by creating him in the test tube. And you've also introduced a third parent in a way, because you're getting the mitochondrial DNA from another woman. So now you have a new human being who has inherited genetic material from three persons. That's a total violation of God's design. So a lot of ethical problems with that, and also potential medical problems, because we don't really know what's going to happen, how these people are going to develop, if they're going to have some latent diseases, some problem in development. This is really uncharted territory, and we're conducting experimentation on young new human persons who cannot give consent for experimentation. So it's a violation of their right of autonomy to have a right to know what is going to happen to them and have a say in what's going to happen to them. And we're applying experimental procedures whose long-term effects are unknown.
Yeah, right. We're basically gambling with other people's lives.
That's right.
Well, as I said, lots and lots of calls today. Shall we go to calls?
Let's do it.
Again, the number 888-318-7884. It is Pro-Life Open Forum today with Dr. George Delgado. If you have a question on ethical concerns involving the beginnings, the middle, the end of life, we are happy to take your call, 888-318-7884. Let's start with Stacy in Santa Cruz, California, listening on the Catholic Answers Live app, an app everyone should have. Thanks, Stacy, for your call. Your question for Dr. Delgado.
Hi there. Thanks so much for taking my call. First of all, I was at the Walk for Life in San Francisco this last weekend. It was my first time going, and it was so wonderful, and I really recommend it to anyone who's up for going in the West Coast. So
Cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So 2 years ago, I was pregnant with my daughter, and unfortunately, at 15 weeks, my water ruptured. We were given a less than 1% chance at her survival, and it was definitely the darkest time in my life. We were urged to abort, mostly because of the risk of chorioamnionitis, which is the infection of the fetal membrane. And they told us that the only successful treatment for that would be delivering the baby if I were to get it, and because antibiotics aren't as effective, and it's just really deadly for the baby and the mother, and I could go into septic shock, and there were, very scary things. I did not abort, and actually my daughter is almost 2 years old. She's completely 100% healthy, totally normal, happy little girl.
Wonderful.
So I did end up getting chorioamnionitis when I was 28 weeks, but they just delivered her prematurely. And I've always had this question in the back of my mind that and here's my question for you, that if I or any woman in my predicament were to get chorioamnionitis before viability, what would be the ethical thing to do? Because obviously delivering the child before 24 weeks, especially, 15 weeks when I ruptured would be a death sentence, but I don't know how I would do it without me being susceptible to septic shock as well.
Right, yeah, and you propose a very interesting scenario. First of all, let's just talk about your case since you brought it up, just for the education of our listeners. When there is a rupture of membranes early, doctors often will give this advice that you might get chorioamnionitis, in which case it could be very serious and you could die. And that's true. All that is very true. The recommendation, though, was flawed because all women who have this early rupture of membranes don't develop chorioamnionitis, which is, like you said, an infection of the membranes enveloping the baby and the placenta. Only some of them do. And so the ethical treatment there would be to do as you did, and is to wait and watch and to take precautions, maybe to take antibiotics to try to prevent the chorioamnionitis, and to be on bed rest and all the things that you probably did. Because oftentimes the leak will seal, and once it seals, then the outside world is again separated from the inside world. The big danger is when the outside world communicates with the inside world, then bacteria can go inside and cause infection. But sometimes it will seal, like in your case. Now, of course, you probably had some defect in your membranes, and so you later on developed infection. Once there is infection, then, of course, it's a much more serious situation. And currently, our current state of knowledge and practice is that the really only effective treatment for chorioamnionitis is, quote, emptying of the uterus, because it's analogous to an abscess. An abscess, of course, is a pocket of infection, and the abscess, to be successfully treated, really needs to be drained and needs to be emptied out. There have been some isolated cases of women being treated who had chorioamnionitis with antibiotics aggressively, who have done well, but those are really rare case reports. So I would say that a woman choosing that course, that would probably be considered heroic and would not be required at this point in our understanding of it, of chorioamnionitis. And so having the treatment of emptying the uterus, or DNC, which they would call it, would actually not be considered a direct abortion. It would be considered an indirect abortion, analogous to the situation when a woman has a tubal pregnancy and the portion of the tube is removed. So there's one action that is removing the contents of the uterus with an intent of curing an infection. The two results of that are, number one, you clear out the infected tissue, and number two, you end the life of the unborn baby if the baby is pre-viable. And the second consequence is not wanted but it is foreseen, and there's no better way to act. So I've just described the application of the principle of double effect, and so in good conscience, a person could very well take that, accept that treatment, and have that in good conscience. Now, it's important to keep in mind that this is far different from what we call direct abortion, or most people just call abortion, where you end the life of the baby, let's say because you don't want to stress on the mother's mental health or the mother's heart disease or something like that. In that case, the emptying of the uterus is not a direct treatment for the disease. And we can finish this on the other side of the break if you like, because there are a couple of nuances that I think need to be mentioned.
Fair enough. Stacy, I hope you can hang around. We will take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more Pro-Life Open Forum with our good friend, Dr. George Delgado, Medical Director of the Culture of Life Family Healthcare. We'll be right back with that after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live.
EWTN's cathedrals across America and the Diocese of Jefferson City, Missouri invite you to a celebration of apostolic succession as they welcome their new apostle and shepherd, Father W. Sean McKnight. From the Cathedral of St. Joseph, the Mass of Ordination and Installation of Father W. Sean McKnight as the 4th Bishop of Jefferson City. Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern, here on EWTN Television and Radio Classics.
Do you subscribe to Catholic Answers magazine? We hope, but if not, right now we've got a deal that you're going to love. We've reduced the price and thrown in a free digital subscription when you subscribe. That's right, subscriptions to Catholic Answers magazine just got cheaper, $10 less on one-year subscriptions and $20 less on two-year subscriptions. And right now, when you purchase a subscription, you get a subscription to the digital edition added to your order for free. With a deal like that, it's the perfect gift for friends, family members, seminarians, your priest, even yourself. When you get right down to it, what other gift has the potential to touch hearts and reap eternal rewards? Log on today to CatholicAnswersMagazine.com and sign up yourself, your friends, and your family for a magazine that is bound to make a difference in their lives and the lives of those they meet. Share the faith. Defend the faith. Catholic Answers magazine from Catholic Answers, the most trusted name in Catholic apologetics.
Tim Staples, Trent Horn, Cy Kellett, Chris Check, Carlo Broussard. Our on-fire lineup of speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker for your event, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, Pro-Life Open Forum on this Friday. Hope your Friday is going well. Glad you're here with us. Thanks so much for being with us. Dr. George Delgado, Medical Director of the Culture of Life Family Healthcare, is our guest this hour. Pro-Life Open Forum is our topic, and we're at the moment talking with Stacy in Santa Cruz, California, about Doctor, I'm going to let you describe. If I try to say what we're talking about, I will get it wrong. So we were discussing.
Sure, we're talking about chorioamnionitis, which is when a pregnant woman has an infection of the membranes of pregnancy, which include the amniotic sac, and that's why it's amnionitis, and chorio, the chorion, which is the baby's contribution to the placenta. So when you have the placenta and the amniotic sac infected, and we were talking about that. Really, right now, the only surefire treatment for that is emptying the contents of the uterus. That is a DNC, analogous to an abscess that must be lanced and drained. And in doing so, of course, if the baby is not at the point of viability, can't survive outside of the uterus, then the baby's going to die. But that we can justify this using the principle of double effect. And what I wanted to do was just shed some light that proponents of abortion, whenever discussions come up about laws that limit the abortion, that they often use this argument that if you make abortion somehow illegal, if you declare the unborn child a person, then women who have conditions such as chorea, amnionitis won't be able to get treatment because it'll be considered an abortion. But that's not true, because right now it's not considered an abortion. This is just considered medical treatment. The technical sort of philosophical term we use is that this is an indirect abortion, and that what most people consider an abortion is what we call a direct abortion, because it's a direct killing. This is an indirect killing of the baby as a sort of a side effect of a medical treatment. And so it has far different philosophical, ethical, and legal implications. And so any kind of personhood laws or laws that would outlaw most abortion would not make these kinds of medical procedures illegal at all, as they would not make treatment for tubal pregnancies illegal. Those are not considered to be abortions. So I just wanted to make that clear, because sometimes the opponents of pro-life laws will try to muddle the waters by bringing things like this into it.
Stacy, how does all that strike you?
Yeah, thanks so much. It brings me a lot of relief. And if there are any listeners out there that go through something like I've been through, I don't lose hope. And there's a slogan in the support group community for this, where there's a heartbeat, there's hope. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Stacy. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you for your hope, Stacy.
And Dr. Delgado, it strikes me that a lot of people think that the teaching of the Catholic Church, I don't know if people think this or people just say this because they want to make some kind of points in a debate or something, but that the Catholic Church values the life of the child more highly than the life of the mother. And all the things that you just said, I think, help to make clear that is not the case.
Absolutely not. And I think this is, again, another strategy of the anti-life forces, because, the Catholic Church is the strongest voice, strongest pro-life voice in the world. And the Catholic Church always clearly states in its official teachings and in its pastoral outreach that the life of the mother and the life of the unborn baby are equal. They're both equal in the eyes of God, and so they need to be treated equally. That's all the Church seeks to do. It doesn't seek to sacrifice one for the expense of the other, but to treat them equally, which is how we should all treat one another, really.
Pro-Life Open Forum, we'd love your question. If you have a question about beginnings, middles, ends of life, life in crisis, how to address various ethical issues that come at those times when life is in crisis, please give us a call, 888-318-7884. We go now to Diane in Fort Collins, Colorado, listening on AM 1060. Diane, thank you so much for waiting. Your question for Dr. Delgado.
Good afternoon. Thanks for taking my call. I have someone in my life who is pregnant with twins, and the twins have something called twin-to-twin transfusion, where one twin is giving their blood to the other twin, causing that twin to really kind of wither away, and causing the other twin to have high blood pressure because it's getting too much blood for its heart. So they've been advised with two choices. One was to go in and try to reverse the transfusion so that the one twin would get the blood back that it's transfusing into its twin, or to cauterize the umbilical cord of the one that's giving its blood to the other, which would cause that baby to die. To go in and reverse the transfusion gave them both a 60-40 chance of surviving, and to go in and cauterize the umbilical cord of the one twin would give the other twin, almost 100% chance of surviving. So they're in a very difficult situation, and I'm the one Catholic that probably looks to the teachings of the Church, and so I was just wondering what, my advice to them was, well, you try to say both and then you let God be God, but I'm not sure, if that was the best or what else I could say to them.
Yeah, no, that's another very interesting situation. And these twins are identical twins, or what we call monozygotic twins. This is one of the reasons why monozygotic twins really, twins also, and twins in general, but are generally high-risk pregnancies because different problems can happen. So when monozygotic twins share a placenta is when this can happen. So they've shared a placenta, and some of the blood vessels kind of get intermixed, and one of the twins is getting too much blood, and the other twin is not getting enough, and that's what can often happen. So, and it sounds like the procedure where they would go in and cauterize the one twin's umbilical vessels, that really is a direct assault on that twin, and it's really killing that unborn baby to sacrifice the sibling. So from an ethical standpoint, that would not be acceptable, because the action is actually a direct assault on that unborn child. The effect that's desired is a good effect, and that is having at least one of the twins survive, but the way to get there is flawed. While the other procedure, where it's an attempt to correct the circulation, is aimed at correcting the underlying defect, it's not aimed at harming one twin or the other. And by trying to decrease the blood flow to one and increase the blood flow to the other would be perfectly acceptable and would be the desired treatment, because the effect, although there's perhaps a 40% chance of side effects, the chance of success is 60%. And it's not so much, although it is partly that you're trying to help both twins, but it's from an ethical standpoint, the key thing here is that the action being taken in and of itself is not an evil action. It's a good action. The good action is trying to fix the circulation. So that's why it's different from the other one, where the action itself is a direct assault. It's killing the other unborn baby. So because of that, then that's the preferred action. And there might be more than one preferred action, as long as the action is an attempt to correct the circulation. And even if some of the effects of that action could be negative, as long as that's the best way to proceed and the positive effects are at least of the same magnitude, in which case they're of higher magnitude, then that would be a good way to go. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yes. So then, if they're looking for people's advice, family members' advice as to what to do, and somebody should recommend that they do the cauterization because then one baby survives, what's the culpability on that person that would give that advice? Someone they trust and would look up to.
Well, culpability is always very difficult because we can never judge people personally. We certainly can judge objective actions and even objective advice, but we can never make a judgment on someone personally. The other thing, the person giving the advice, we always have to, even from an objective standpoint, if that person doesn't have a clear understanding of the natural law and of Catholic ethics, then that person given faulty advice would not even objectively be as culpable, and certainly would be less culpable than somebody, let's say, like myself or you, who had a clear understanding and went ahead and gave poor advice. So we always have to keep that in mind, that we don't know what the person's motivations are, and we don't know the person's formation, and formation can have a lot to do with it, especially in our society here, where unfortunately we've become so utilitarian, especially in medicine, so that there's often a technological imperative, and that means that if there's a way to if there's an ability to do something, then there's an imperative, there's a demand to do it. And so we can create babies in the laboratory, and we can create babies with three parents, so we should do that in order to prevent mitochondrial diseases. And we should do IVF because people have infertility. So that technological imperative and that utilitarianism then is applied to this situation, where people say, well, gosh, I don't want a 40% chance of my baby being harmed, then I'm going to kill one to have about 100% chance of a healthy baby. So you see that kind of logic and that kind of ethic is applied, and so we have to keep that in mind when we talk about culpability, just even from an objective standpoint. That doesn't lessen our obligation to educate people. We still need to educate people and present them with the truth, but we always have to present it charitably and present the truth in a way that is most acceptable to them. Because if we present the truth in a way that is not charitable, then they may dismiss it out of hand, and we may be worse off than if we tried to give the truth in maybe a staged fashion in ways that they can accept. So we always have to keep that in mind, that it's not always just the message, it's how that message is delivered, and that, of course, depends on we, the messengers.
Okay, Diane?
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the call. Again, it is Pro-Life Open Forum on Catholic Answers Live today. If you have questions about ethical issues at the beginning, middle, or end of life, often these things come when there's a crisis, but sometimes there are longer-term questions having to do with the care of the elderly or the care of the disabled. Any question having to do with life is welcome today, and we have the guy to give you the answers, Dr. George Delgado, a longtime physician and very well trained in Catholic ethical principles from the National Catholic Bioethics Center. Please give us a call if you have a question, 888-318-7884. The number 888-318-7884. We'll get to your calls right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Call now. Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Tim Staples, and I'm challenging you to take the 20 Answers Challenge. Here's how the challenge works. When you purchase the sampler of all 26 books in the 20 Answers series, we're going to knock 60% off the price, and we're challenging you to finish them all this Lent and Easter season. And this year, to make it easier, we're offering free shipping on the sampler if you live in the continental United States. That's 60% off free shipping and over 500 answers to questions you have about the Catholic faith. Join us this Lent and Easter to take the 20 Answers Challenge, and together we can be part of something great. Call 1-888-291-8000 or visit the shop at Catholic.com now to get your set and begin taking the 20 Answers Challenge today.
Just like the saints of the Counter-Reformation, our own souls are in constant need of reform, of reconversion to God and His will for us. We struggle with sin. We become distracted in prayer. We find it hard to be loving and easy to be selfish. In Reform Yourself, Sean McAfee shows you how these magnificent saints can be guides to your own personal transformation. We all need to reform our souls. Let the saints who reformed the church show you how. Order your copy of Reform Yourself today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Catholic Answers Live is brought to you in part by CatholicSingles.com, the website for Catholics who want to meet others who share their faith and values for faith, fellowship, and love. You can learn more at CatholicSingles.com. Catholic Answers Live thanks CatholicSingles.com for their generous support.
Homeschool Connections, an online provider of courses for your Catholic homeschool, is a sponsor of Catholic Answers Live. Homeschool Connections website is homeschoolconnections.com.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. I want this whole month, actually maybe even more than this month. I got to ask Carrie when this ends. The 20 Answers sampler is on sale. All 26 books in the 20 Answers series are being offered for up to 60% off the normal price of the books. Also, you're getting free shipping on that. It's the 20 Answers Challenge. The way you take the challenge is you get those books for 60% off and free shipping, and then we challenge you to read all 26 by the end of the Eastertide. A couple of books, the end of life issues is a recent one. Abortion is one of the core ones there. But they're on all kinds of topics, whether it's on the death penalty or Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons or the Immaculate Conception. It's all there. Miracles. There's 26 of them, and they're 60% off right now. You just go to shop.catholic.com to get that 60% off and free shipping. Shop.catholic.com. Our number again, 888-318-7884. Pro-Life Open Forum this hour. Next hour, Father Mike Schmitz will be in here. 888-318-7884. I want to share, I've been hanging out a little bit on YouTube while we're having this discussion, Dr. Delgado, and a YouTuber asks, is there an official teaching from the Catholic Church on when life begins and abortion?
Sure, and I think I'll take that in the reverse order. We'll talk about abortion first, and it's very clear that both the Bible and the Catechism of the Catholic Church are, have very strong foundations against abortion, as well as very early church teachings. In fact, the Didache, which is the writings of the early apostles, which was the teachings of Jesus' apostles, clearly states that abortion is an evil. And the Bible, of course, several places give the admonition, thou shalt not kill. And the Catechism of that Catholic Church makes it very clear that direct abortion is an intrinsic evil, like we said earlier, and that it is always wrong. So taking the life of an innocent person, whether that person is unborn or already born, is an intrinsic evil. So there really should be no doubt about that. Now the question about when life begins, by that, of course, I think the person who wrote that meant when a human life begins, when a human individual begins. And that's really, if you think about it, more the responsibility and the domain of science. And the science of embryology has been very clear, and the Church is pointing to this as saying that this is the truth, is that when the sperm and the egg unite, or in the case of, let's say, cloning, when you have a full complement of chromosomes, which is two pairs each of 23 chromosomes, a total of 46 chromosomes, that there you have a new human individual. And that new human individual, of course, does what all human individuals do, and it does what it's genetically programmed to do, and that is to start to develop in the way that is in keeping with its state of development. So if it's a zygote, a one-cell new human organism, then it divides into two and becomes a two-cell embryo. If it's a two-cell embryo, it divides and becomes a four-cell embryo, along and long and long. And then when the embryo is at about 7 to 8 weeks of life, we now call it a fetus, and just another name for it, just because now all the organs are formed. Fetus is just a Latin word that means little baby. And then when the fetus exits the birth canal and is in the outside world, we suddenly call it a newborn or a neonate in medical terms. So we have these different terms for the person along the different road of development. And then you have a neonate or a newborn for the first month. After that, we call it a baby. Once the baby starts walking at about 1 year of age, we call it a toddler. We call it a toddler until about age 3, when we start calling it a preschooler. And then it's a school child, and then it's an adolescent, then it's an adult, and then it becomes a senescent adult, an aging adult. So we have names for this individual along the line of continuum. That's all they are, just labels to describe where that person is along the continuum. So we know from science then that a new human organism begins when that sperm and egg unite for most of us. And then the question is, well, is that human individual a person? So personhood is really more of a philosophical and perhaps a religious question, not so much a scientific question. When is a human individual a person? And the Church talks about something called ensoulment, when that individual has a soul. Now, we know that all of us have souls, and we know that the most unborn babies in the womb have souls. And so when is that soul actually placed in there? Because we know that soul is placed in there by God. And the Church in the Catechism has said that when that ensoulment actually takes place has not been revealed to us directly by God. It's not in Scripture. It's not by extra-scriptural revelation to the apostles. So it hasn't been given directly. However, using the reason that God gives us, our rational minds that God has given us, Pope John Paul II stated quite eloquently that we can reason that the individual is a person from the get-go, because there is no other logical point that would make sense for God to place that soul other than at the very beginning. It just doesn't make sense. And so we can conclude then that the human individual, the new human life, is a person from the very, very first instant of new life. And that's really what the church holds and essentially teaches, but with that proviso that it's in a way it's kind of a theological and philosophical assumption, but it's a very solid assumption that we can all hang our hats on that and we can take that to the bank.
Well, thank you. I'm actually glad that because that's a very basic question, and sometimes maybe we get to the esoteric and we don't always review for people the teaching on life. I do want to get to some more calls, a whole bunch of folks, and we'll try to get as many as we can before the end of the hour. Alice in Bismarck, North Dakota, listening on Real Presence Radio. You are on with Dr. George Delgado. Your question, please.
Hi, I wonder if you can, if you know of groups of these stem cell institutes that are good and others that are not. I Googled this one in our area called Stem Cell Institute of America, and at the same time, I got a Dr. Chris Centeno called them a bait and switch enterprise, and so I think people are probably being led astray. And when I looked at Stem Cell Institute of America, it did say they used aborted fetuses the first time I looked. Then I went back, I don't know, a week or something later, and it didn't say that. Plus, they've changed their name to Stem Cell Health or something. And so it's really a concern because they've been advertising a lot.
Yes, so the use of stem cells is becoming more and more popular, both for just basic science experimentation as well as treatment of diseases. Now, treatment of diseases and experimentation with so-called adult stem cells, and these are cells that do not require the ending of the life of an embryo. This is totally acceptable, and in fact, all of the clinical successes, over 300 clinical diseases have been treated with adult stem cell research. This is great and laudable. However, the use of so-called embryonic stem cells really goes against the natural law and against church teaching because it requires the killing of an early embryo. Or sometimes if they've harvested cells from an aborted, farther along baby, then there is a connection with evil there. The sort of gray area are the induced pluripotent cells. These are cells that are adult cells that are taken and that are chemically and genetically converted into very primitive cells. Most theologians and ethicists feel that this is acceptable. Some argue that actually there is an embryo that is produced in doing that. I really don't think so, but that's why I call that somewhat of a gray area. Hope that answers your question.
Alice, thank you very much for the call. I'm going to try to get one more in before we go, so I'll let you go. Let's go to Sonia on the road in Kansas, listening on the Catholic Answers live app. Your question real quick, Sonia. We'll try to get it in.
Yes, is there any evidence that children born from abortion are actually violent?
Children born from abortion?
Yes.
Do you mean children born out of rape?
For aborting a baby that was conceived that way.
I'm sorry, Sonia. I'm just a little bit confused. You mean like they tried to abort the baby, but the baby lived?
No, they say that the reason for aborting babies is that are conceived from rape.
Oh, from rape. Okay, so babies conceived from rape. Doctor, I'm sorry, that doesn't leave us much time. Is there any evidence that they're more violent?
I haven't seen any evidence. However, if this is a violent rapist, the genetic tendency to be violent, comes from both parents. So if one parent is violent by tendency, then the offspring of that person may have more of an inclination to violent tendencies.
I'm sorry, Sonia, we didn't get to have a little more detail with your question, but thank you for the question. Thanks for everybody who joined us this hour. Dr. George Delgado, thank you for a very enlightening pro-life open forum hour.
You're very welcome. It's great being with you.
And people can find you at Culture of Life Family Healthcare. You want to give out the website?
Sure. The website is colfs.org. Also visit abortionpillreversal.com for our abortion pill reversal program. Abortionpillreversal.com
or colfs.org. Next hour, we're going to talk about the brand new book, Made for Love, Same-Sex Attraction in the Catholic Church, from Father Michael Schmitz, internet sensation. Hang on, and we will get to that. If you've got a question for Father Schmitz, 888-318-7884. We'll be right back with that after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome to Catholic Answers Live, the program where you participate with your questions about apologetics and evangelization, including the most important theological, spiritual, moral, and social issues facing the world today. Call now with your question for today's guest. Toll free 1-888-31-TRUTH. That's 888-318-7884. Now, from San Diego, Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to our super big Friday show here on Catholic Answers Live. We are joined this hour by an actual internet sensation. Father Mike Schmitz has a brand new book, Made for Love, Same-Sex Attractions and the Catholic Church. It's from Ignatius Press and the Augustine Institute. Father Schmitz is also a well-known YouTube, I think it's YouTube, YouTube presence, shall we say. He's a priest of the Diocese of Duluth, Minnesota. He currently runs the Newman Center at the University of Minnesota Duluth and is also the Director of Youth and Young Adult Ministry at the Diocese. And today, he is our guest. Thanks for being with us, Father Schmitz.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And are you in Minnesota now?
Currently at the Newman House in Duluth, Minnesota. Yeah. It's roughly, 10 below right now. No big deal.
That's what everybody always wants to know at this time of year in Minnesota. What's the temperature? Like 10 below, that's not bad.
No. I mean, we got down to 26, 30 something below
right.
Within the last couple of weeks, and so
if it got to 10 below in Southern California, we would all be dead. We would just all die. Well, but for you, it's like, whatever.
It is not fun, I'll tell you that.
Well, spring is coming, and it does seem that there are there's a whole real conversation going on in the Catholic Church about same-sex attractions and about how the Church has responded in the past, how the Church responds today, what the future of the Church holds. Why did you write the book Made for Love?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually didn't want to originally. Ignatius had approached me, and I'd given a talk on this topic, and they said, "Hey, we need to make this into a book." And I was like, "I don't know. I don't really want to." But then it ultimately came down to, if I rewind my life to even when I had my conversion to Christ, 15, 16, like shortly thereafter, there were people in my life that I recognized. Like, I wonder, that sense of, here they are, they're close to me, I love them very much, and I just have a sense that this is a reality in their life.
Yeah.
And so ever since, I was in college, I studied theology and then went to seminary after I was missionary for about a year. This question kept coming back up because, like, no, there's people that I love that I think this is the reality in their life until, they finally did reveal these things. And I remember having this desire of, I want to be able to speak to them. I want to be able to, care for the people that I actually do know and right in front of me, the people I love, and try to bridge a gap between their experience and the love of God for them in the Catholic Church. And so it really, when it comes down to it, this I guess, quote unquote, topic or issue never really started as an issue for me. It was always connected to persons. It was always connected to people. And so that's where it started for me, is just this desire to care for the people I love and call them and explain things as best as I could and call them into sainthood.
I have been impressed in recent years whenever I, give a talk or am with people who are Catholic young adults or Catholic teenagers, and even in some cases those who are younger than teenagers, how much this issue kind of weighs on them. That if you say, well, you're encouraging, to accept the love of God, the gospel of Jesus Christ, and all that, and if it comes around to, well, what are the obstacles? It's amazing to me that it feels like maybe a 90% certainty that what a younger person will say has something to do with how the Church treats gay people.
Yeah, no, that was actually another motivation. Is the Ignatius and Augustine people had contacted me because they wanted the book based off of a talk. The talk originated because I was giving a presentation to about 1,500, 2,000 high school students down in the Twin Cities, St. Paul, Minneapolis. And the man in charge said, "What do you want to talk about?" And I had been in relationships with a bunch of youth who they had encountered Jesus. They knew the truth of the Eucharist. They knew the truth of the Catholic Church. They knew Christ founded the church, all these things. But when they got to this issue, it was like they pulled the chute. Like, I can't do it.
Right.
I was like, man, this is nuts. And so just seeing all of these great young people who were saying, I just can't do this, caused me to say, we need to say something. We need to present what we truly believe in a way that demonstrates to you that this is not a message of hate. This is not a message of discarding people, but this truly is fundamentally a message of love. And that's why even the book is called Made for Love. It means it is about those who experience same-sex attraction, made for love, and the rest of us made for love. So
888-318-7884, the number if you'd like to talk with Father Mike Schmitz about his brand new book, Made for Love, Same-Sex Attractions and the Catholic Church, 888-318-7884. We do already have callers for you. Father, shall we go to the phones?
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, let's start with Giuseppe Giuseppe from England. Yeah, Giuseppe calls somewhat regularly, and we're always happy to hear your English voice. Giuseppe, your question for Father.
Hello. How are you this evening?
We're very well.
Fantastic.
Father Mike, I've rang up really. It wasn't anything to do with what you're going to talk to tonight about the book, and I'm sure you'll do very well with the book. Just want to thank you very much for what you've done for me in terms of I've become a real devout Catholic. I've had a lot of upsets and one thing after another in my family, and it's put me closer back to the church. But because of you and watching your videos in England, it's really, and of course in conjunction with Catholic Answers and my parish and priests, I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I think you're a great bloke. You're brilliant, as we say in England.
Wow. So, well, thank you, Giuseppe. Thank you so much. That means a lot. That means so much. And what a great gift of God's grace. You know, it's wow. That's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. So I just wanted to tell you. That's all I wanted to do.
Thank you.
Giuseppe, you're one of our favorite callers. We love it when you call. And thanks for I can tell just looking at him that you made Father Mike's day today. So that's a beautiful thing. And I call you an internet sensation, Father. And I maybe have some sense of teasing in that because it doesn't sound like, maybe you don't usually think of your local priest as an internet sensation, but you have used that the medium of especially video on the internet to share the love of God in a reasonable and kind way with so many people. It's a kind of it's wonderful to hear that from Giuseppe, but I'm sure there are thousands of other people who could call with a very similar call.
It's a gift. I mean, what a grace to be able to be part of that. So thank both of you. Thanks for saying that.
Yeah, well, you know what I think we're going to do? We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with internet sensation Father Michael Schmitz, the author of Made for Love, Same-Sex Attractions in the Catholic Church. If you have questions about the book or about same-sex attractions or about the Catholic Church, give us a call, 888-318-7884. We'll be right back with Father Mike Schmitz after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Bishop James Wall from the Diocese of Gallup, New Mexico. Keep it right here on Catholic Answers Live.
Hi, this is Tim Staples, and I'm challenging you to take the 20 Answers Challenge. Here's how the challenge works. When you purchase the sampler of all 26 books in the 20 Answers series, we're going to knock 60% off the price, and we're challenging you to finish them all this Lent and Easter season. And this year, to make it easier, we're offering free shipping on the sampler if you live in the continental United States. That's 60% off free shipping and over 500 answers to questions you have about the Catholic faith. Join us this Lent and Easter to take the 20 Answers Challenge, and together we can be part of something great. Call 1-888-291-8000 or visit the shop at Catholic.com now to get your set and begin taking the 20 Answers Challenge today.
Just like the saints of the Counter-Reformation, our own souls are in constant need of reform, of reconversion to God and His will for us. We struggle with sin. We become distracted in prayer. We find it hard to be loving and easy to be selfish. In Reform Yourself, Sean McAfee shows you how these magnificent saints can be guides to your own personal transformation. We all need to reform our souls. Let the saints who reformed the church show you how. Order your copy of Reform Yourself today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Do you love sharing the gospel and want to learn to be more effective? Join the St. Paul Street Evangelization online School of Evangelization. You will learn to build bridges of trust and make disciples by befriending strangers, proclaiming the gospel, inviting people to the church, and praying with others. We'll ask for a pledge of financial support, but if you are unable to give, we'll give you a membership at no cost. Find out more and get involved today at streetevangelization.com. That's streetevangelization.com.
Call now with your question, 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live, Super Big Friday show, and it really is a Super Big Friday show, and we have internet sensation Father Michael Schmitz with us, and we have the opportunity to talk about his brand new book, Made for Love: Same-Sex Attractions and the Catholic Church, a very, very important topic these days, and it's certainly the case, Father, that the Catholic Church is probably the primary voice in the world challenging many of the values of the sexual revolution, saying, not so fast on a lot of those.
Yeah.
And so maybe people either assume or extrapolate from that a Catholic distaste for gay people, because a lot of the kind of revolution in that area is connected with connected with the sexual revolution. And if you Catholics are against sexual revolution, you must be against us.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, because I think in many ways the narrative has been taken away from us. Or I want to say not the narrative, not just the narrative, but even our message has been taken away from us, or maybe given away. I'm not sure it doesn't really matter. Ultimately, I think our world presents, I worried about this in the book, because I remember talking with someone very close to me, and he had said, he showed me this video, and the video was very compelling, because it was this story of this young man who had come out of the closet to his family with his partner. And he said that when I came out of the closet, I introduced my family to this man, and they called him Uncle Shane, and they loved him, and he was part of the family. But when he told his family about me, they said, if you come home, you show up on our front porch, we're going to meet you at the door with a shotgun. And so this was and so I'm watching this video, and this, again, the person I'm close to was showing this to me, and I got done with the video, and I said, so he said, what do you think? And I said, well, are those my only two options?
I guess so. Yeah.
Truly, it's like, it's either this, like, you're going to celebrate and agree with everything I choose and do, or that means you hate me.
Right.
And it's just like, wait. And I remember my dad, he's such a wise man. He said, no parent agrees with every decision their child makes. And he said, no good parent agrees with every decision their child makes. Maybe some parents do, but no good parent does. And that, like, being in a real relationship means there's a third way. It's not either I celebrate everything you do or I hate you. It's, okay, I'm in a real relationship with you, which means that we're going to disagree, and we're going to continue to be in each other's lives. Like, we're going to disagree at times, and you might tell me that you think I'm wrong, and I might tell you I think you're wrong, but, like, we're going to stay. And that's why one of the messages that I like to give, particularly when it comes to young people, but everybody, is, I remember I gave a talk at a Steubenville conference a couple of years back, and it was called Tolerance and Same-Sex Attraction. And I said, this isn't really about tolerance, because tolerance is about them and about us. And I think for too long we say, well, those people who experience X, Y, Z, but for us, here's what we have to do. Mm-hmm. I said, we have to actually change our language. If we really believe that we're the body of Christ, and that all those baptized are truly sons and daughters of the Father, our brothers and sisters, then it's just us. And so this is a family thing. And that's why one of the best, I think, images that helps me at least kind of move forward in this is, I'm talking to my sister here. I'm talking to my brother here. Mm. And that means we're going to be in a real relationship. And I do not always agree with my sisters and brothers, and they don't always agree with me, but it's us. This is our family as opposed to us and them. And I think once we pass that and really communicate that, and I know that many people have a wound of, I fear that you're going to reject me if I reveal this about me. And when you can say, I'm not going to reject you. I'm going to, at some point, we can talk about this later if you want, we might be called higher. We're going to be called higher. But right now, this isn't about rejection. This is about like, no, I love you. This is this third way of Jesus, who says to the woman caught in adultery, I don't condemn you, but go and sin no more. Like, I want to be in relationship. This is not the end. At the same time, this also is, I'm not just going to let you go. And that's this false kind of love that says, oh, live and let live. That's not love at all. That's basically, John Paul II, what did he say? He said, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is use. You could even say it's indifference. And think about how often we're just indifferent. Like, just live and let live. That is indifference, and that is the farthest thing from love that I think a person could have.
Father Mike Schmitz is our guest. Made for Love is the new book. Lots and lots of callers. So let's, if it's all right with you, Father, we'll head to the phones.
Sure.
Ray in Lexington, Kentucky, watching on YouTube. Thanks for joining us on YouTube, Ray. Your question for Father Mike Schmitz.
Hey, Father Mike. So my question is, I have these friends and they're Christian and they've really prayed and discerned and say that they feel called, to that relationship with the other person, and living that, same-sex relationship, obviously, not chastely. So, how can we be Christians and, walk beside them, in that, knowing that, we can't be oh, yeah, that's, you're totally called to that person, to live in that unchaste way.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, it sounds like what you're describing is a situation where you're pretty frank with each other all around. And not only that, but it sounds like that you all have, in this case, there's an appeal to their Christian faith, and there's an appeal to the claim that the Lord is leading us into this. Now, one of the first things I always say is, here, two kind of notes. One is, I think a lot of these kind of situations are common sense situations. What I've found oftentimes is that there's this kind of exceptionalism that can happen when it comes to this issue. That if it was a different issue, if it was an issue of someone else living in some kind of other sinful relationship, some kind of other choosing some other kind of sinful thing, it would be we would know exactly what to do, right? We would be it's not a protected class. There's not again, this concept of exceptionalism, that in my case, I should have permission to go against God's word because I prayed about this. So similarly, if someone were to say, in my case, I prayed that I fell in love with, my secretary at work, and so I have to leave my wife. And I think the Lord's blessing that because he hasn't said no. Well, actually, no, he did say no. It's in his word. And this is basic common sense discernment, So that's one of the things, is just to note for ourselves is what's common sense. Now, that's number one. Number two is that sense of being able to, I'm here to listen, but at some point, are you going to ask me what I think? If they don't, then, I don't know. Sometimes we're called to be prophets amongst our friends and family. But on the other hand, is if someone is kind of I imagine, I keep having this image of those who attacked Stephen, and that, they just plugged their ears as they were stoning him. Not to say that you're being stoned in this, but to be able to say that if someone's willing to listen, then I'm willing to speak. But if someone's not willing to listen, then all right, what do you want me to do? Because thirdly, I can affirm all that we can affirm. That when it comes down to it is, as Catholic Christians, there's a lot in relationships that we can say, that's fine. Here's two people. I remember giving a talk at a college a number of years ago. And at the end of the talk, this young woman stood up and she said, my partner, my girlfriend is, she makes me more patient. She makes me a better person. I'm more kind. I'm more generous. With her, she makes me, she's a great support for me. And when she got done, I said, everything you just described is a good thing. Literally everything you described is a good thing that a friendship can add to someone's life. And so the church doesn't condemn any of that. It's simply the sexual acting out of, a genital expression of sexual affection for the other person, that the church begins to say, okay, now that's the line. That's the line. And so in this, these three things keep in mind. One is, would it be as a foggy of a call if it was a different kind of situation, if it was another kind of sin? Secondly is, of course, I do want to have the sense of patience and kindness with someone, and just be able to listen and be patient. But third, when it comes to speaking, do I have permission? Do I have permission to challenge? Because if it was another friend, think about another Christian friend, if you shared your faith, and they were saying, I have the sense that I know God's word has said this about this, but I feel called to do, X, anti whatever God has said. Would you, in that situation, that relationship, be free to disagree? Or would it be like this situation where it's like, I can't even challenge him on this because it's this situation? I don't know if that makes any sense at all, but I think that if we could take a lot of this down from being like this kind of protected class of an issue, or a kind of exceptionalism, and say, like, let's just make this like anyone else, because that's the thing, is if it really is not them and us, but us, then we do that all the time. We do that with our siblings, we do that with our friends, and we say, it's time to come up higher. And I think that's just common sense.
Ray?
That was awesome, Father Mike. You're the man. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
You. I'm not sure that you're the man, but
I know.
All right, you can have it for today. Anonymous in Ohio, you are on with the man, Father Mike Schmitz. Your question, please.
Hi. I would like prayer, and I would like some advice for my son.
Would you like to tell us about it? Anonymous? I'm sorry.
Hello?
I think the connection got interrupted. You said you would like prayer and advice for your son.
Right. Exactly.
And
how to get him out of how to get him out of the people that he knows that are gay. How I can help him with that, because he sees that his dad's living in an adulterous relationship with a younger woman, and so he sees that. Also, I lost my 40 acres. First it was the marriage, my 40 acres, and then my son is rebelling against his dad by having a friend who is gay. And my son doesn't dress, thank God, like a woman or anything like that, but I just would like prayer on how I can convince him that he needs to change his ways, and because I was raised very strict Christian.
Well, let's. Father, do you want to interject there? And then Anonymous, hang on a quick sec.
Yeah, there's a couple things. One is, of course, obviously your own pain, and that's going to be important to even be able to address and to acknowledge the fact that this is a difficult situation for you. And the first thing, I've had alcoholism affect me and my family in a pretty significant way. And one of the things that is helpful when it comes to those who are not themselves alcoholic, but those who are really close to those who are alcoholics, to go to a group called Al-Anon. And I remember talking to someone who had gone to this in my circle, and they said, okay, they went to a couple of meetings and said, okay, tell me how to fix him. Like, we're talking about ourselves right now, but you guys tell me how to fix the alcoholic in my life. And they said, oh, no, this isn't for him. This isn't to fix him. This is to help you. And in that, one of the first things that I want to say is that the Lord does want to help you. He wants to hold you. He wants to care for you, because you're going through a lot of pain in this. There's a group called Courage, which is for men and women who experience same-sex attraction, but who want to live a Catholic life. They want to live a chaste life. There's another group called Encourage, and that's for friends and family of those who experience same-sex attraction. And I'm not equating alcoholism with same-sex attraction or anything of this. What I am saying, though, is that this affects people's hearts really, really deeply, and affects their lives really deeply. And so, like, what Al-Anon is to those who are affected by another's decision, when it comes to alcohol. Encourage is, I think, to a lot of people who are like, I have questions about how do I continue moving forward? That's the first thing I would say, is because you're worth caring for as well. And it could be really helpful for you to have some encouragement, and that's why they call it encourage, to know how do I truly love my son on a day-to-day basis? That's the first thing. Does that make some sense?
Hello, are you still there?
We are.
Yep.
Did that make sense, what Father said?
I don't drink. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink.
Okay. Anonymous, hang on a quick second. I think Father was making an analogy there, but we'll straighten that out when we come back because the music is playing, and we have to take a quick break. We'll be right back with Father Mike Schmitz, the author of Made for Love, Same-Sex Attractions in the Catholic Church, right after this on Catholic Answers Live.
Catholic Answers Live.
What does the Church actually teach about same-sex attraction? If God created certain people gay, how can we say that it's sinful for them to live that way? Why should we listen to the Old Testament's condemnation of homosexuality when Jesus never said anything about it? In 20 Answers Homosexuality, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, providing a faithful look at what the Bible, the Church, the natural law, and science have to say about same-sex attraction, and how to respond with undiluted truth and compassionate love. 20 Answers Homosexuality is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com today and take a look at this exciting series from Catholic Answers Press.
Why does God sometimes reveal himself privately? How does the Church discern reports of supernatural miracles and apparitions? What are some of the most famous Marian apparitions in history? And what do they teach us? In 20 Answers, Apparitions and Revelations, you'll find smart, solid answers to these questions and many more, explaining the scriptural and theological basis for private revelation, unpacking the Church's approach to evaluating and promoting miraculous phenomena, and sharing inspiring accounts of approved apparitions and revelations from the distant past to the present age. 20 Answers, Apparitions and Revelations is part of the 20 Answers series from Catholic Answers, offering hard facts, powerful arguments, and clear explanations of the most important topics facing the Church and the world, all in a compact, easy-to-read package. Visit shop.catholic.com today and take a look at this exciting new series from Catholic Answers Press.
We need Catholic radio because we need the voice of the Church in the public forum. We live in a time that the secular voice dominates so thoroughly that we need to get that Catholic perspective out. Just as Fulton Sheen used radio and TV in the last century, we need to continue to use this means to announce the Catholic faith in the public forum. Bishop Robert Barron thinks Catholic radio is important. So should you.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. Father Mike Schmitz, author of the brand new book, Made for Love, Same-Sex Attractions in the Catholic Church, is our guest. And if you have a chance, if Catholic Answers has meant a great deal to you, if maybe there was a guest or an edition of Catholic Answers Live, or if you've just benefited from listening to the show and you'd be willing to leave a voicemail testimony to that effect, it's very helpful to us. We would appreciate the opportunity to share that with other people. 619-387-7200 is the number to call if you would like to share your testimony about what Catholic Answers Live has meant in your life. 619-387-7200. As I said, we're very grateful to receive that if that's something that you feel able to do. 888-318-7884 is our number if you'd like to talk with Father Michael Schmitz today, 888-318-7884. And let's just put a bow on that. We were speaking with an anonymous caller in Ohio before we went to the break who wanted to know what to do about her son, who, if I had to be honest with you, Father, it wasn't clear to me if her son is living as a gay man or just has gay friends, but in any case, it was upsetting to our anonymous caller, and you were addressing that.
make it clear that I wasn't equating alcoholism with same-sex attraction. What I was trying to say is that there are groups for those who are affected by these things that can help. And so one of the great groups that could possibly help her, almost regardless of whether her son is actively participating in a homosexual lifestyle, or if he's just kind of surrounded and maybe kind of engulfed, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, in that culture, would be a group called Encourage. It is for family members and friends who of men and women who experience same-sex attraction, who want to know how best to love and want to know how best to care for and how to be part of people's lives and at the same time remain faithful. Because there's a lot of pain, across the board. There can be a lot of pain, a lot of baggage that we're all carrying. And it's true, we're all carrying this stuff. And so Encourage can really help those who are close to men and women who experience same-sex attraction.
Anonymous, thank you very much for that call. Lots of calls for you, Father. Let's go to Carolyn in Sturgis, South Dakota, listening on Real Presence Radio. Carolyn, your question for Father Mike Schmitz.
Hi, Father Mike. I just want to start by
Hello.
echoing Giuseppe and saying thanks for all the work you do and putting your homilies on Bulldog Catholic. They've really helped me.
Thanks.
And my kids love you. My kids are, when we do lunch, they're like, is there a Father Mike video that's new? So I really appreciate
awesome.
it. So I am a youth group leader with my husband, and so we talk with teens about stuff like this, that's affecting them. And my question is, we were talking about like relativism and stuff in our last series, and it got brought up that they have, I guess there's a group of transgendered kids in their school, and this transgender group is like just really mean to everyone else. And so my question to you was, what can I say to help my teens, my Catholic teens, it sounds like they're almost afraid of them, walking them by this other transgendered group in the hallway, and I've said, oh, just maybe say hi to them, and they're like, yeah, then you get, stared at and, and almost like bullied. So what can I tell my Catholic teens about how they could maybe reach out to this group? Because I just feel like these kids are probably just really hurt, and they're kind of just lashing out at everyone. But how do I tell my Catholic teens how to share the love of Christ with these kids? They're going to see him in the hallway.
Father?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. And thank you also, by the way. I would say a couple different things. Let's go the super high road first, and recognize that maybe one of the calls you can have for your teens is, okay, so this group of young people is super mean. And what does that mean? That means that they look at them funny. I mean, just to press pause on that. It's like, so they're really mean. And so if you say hi, they'll look at you funny. And to be able to even just kind of recognize okay, in this day and age, what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to have more and more really, truly courageous Catholics who are willing to be looked at funny, but also even more than that, are willing to even experience a certain degree of misunderstanding, a certain degree of unfair treatment that we want to prepare our young people for, not because we want them to have that, but because we want them to be prepared for that. So I think you're in a phenomenal position to be able to say, okay, so is it possible that your gesture of wanting to just say hello, that's met with some opposition, it's met with a, like you said, a look, or it's met with kind of maybe even some scoffing, is understandable. So let's dial it back and say, what about the martyrs? What about those who really bore witness to the love of Jesus with their whole lives? And then, I think it would be a great opportunity to call some of your teens even higher by inviting them to say, be courageous about this. And now, not courageous about, not that these their students or classmates are projects of theirs, but to be able to recognize, okay, there's probably a lot of pain going on here, like you said, probably a lot of shame happening, some degree of not fitting in fully. And so when someone reaches out or someone kind of just smiles, how you and I interpret that, we would interpret it wow, someone's being nice to me. But if someone, all they know throughout the course of their life is, all they know is rejection, or all they know is this kind of hostility, then they interpret someone's, smile and hello as what do they want from me? Or when are they going to, turn on me? And so I think that it's really important. So if you could communicate to your students those two things first, and then a third thing. The first thing being like, listen, Jesus calls us to love, and so be prepared to get looked at funny. But they're not hurting you, though, so you're not in danger. Secondly, is we all interpret other people's actions according to our experience and our history. If you know love, you're going to interpret someone smiling and saying hello to you as love. But if someone else knows rejection, they might interpret that same gesture as potential rejection or an attack, or abating them into something significant. Thirdly, honestly, as Christians, we have to be willing to reach out, because Jesus would do that. I mean, Pope Francis, what does he say? He says we have to go to the fringes. We have to go out there. And if this is their fringe in Sturgis, if this is kind of their fringe and at their high school, like it's totally worth it to just say hi, and to treat human beings like human beings. And they don't have to do anything more than that. They just have to say, I'm going to treat you the way I like to be treated, and stop there. But I imagine there's something else going on, and I want to give you a chance to speak to that.
Carolyn?
Sure. What you said was great, and I get, limited information because I just get to see them once a week, and none of these teens are my actual biological children. They're just my spiritual children. So yeah, I've kind of done that and told them to keep going, and this is really great what you said with, calling them to have the courage to just know they're going to get looked at and keep saying hello, because just the teenagers they really all want to do the same thing. So
yeah, well, it's so interesting too, because I'm glad you said that. One of the things that I found that I did not expect to find in the last couple of years of working with teens is how the term extra. Have you ever? I don't know if you've heard the term extra.
That's so extra.
Yeah, if someone's trying a little too hard, if someone's wants to be better, if someone wants to be great, it's oh, seriously, don't try to be so extra.
Don't be so
it's
extra.
Oh, no. And yet that sense of oh man, that's what we're made for. We're made for being more than this. One of the things that could be helpful if you want to pass this along is the rate of suicide amongst those who have transgender identity, whatnot, body dysmorphia, gender dysmorphia, is incredibly high. It's in the 40%. Wow. It's likely connected. I mean, I'm not a doctor, so what do I know? But it's likely connected to deeper issues in a person's life. And so if that's the case, and some of your teens know, okay, well, there's some pain going on here. And as we all know, that when someone is experiencing a pain that we might not know anything about, we approach with so much more gentleness. We approach with a lot more understanding when someone lashes out, because oh, they're wounded. And I imagine if you were to be able to communicate to some of your teens, not a pity in the negative sense, but mercy in the positive sense, that would be able to say, okay, you have to understand a lot of these kids are probably wounded in a certain way, that they're going to bare their fangs when you show your teeth and smile. And just understand that they're probably going through some stuff. And I think that could really help too. I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Carolyn?
That's great. And I liked what you said. I liked what you said about if all you know is love, then you see a smile as love. But if all you know is rejection, then it's very threatening. Because I know that for most of my teens, all they've ever known is love. So for them, just making eye contact or smiling would just be what? I'm trying to be nice and smile at you,
Yeah.
Right.
And that's kind of that's kind of what I'm getting feedback from them. They're well, we've already tried to say hi, and they just, come at you or roll their eyes or do whatever, and it's okay. So that was as far as I had. So I thought, well, I'll give it a shot and see if you can help me. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Absolutely.
Thanks very, very much. We got to take a quick break. The number I'm going to get to you, folks that are on the line. Do not worry. We're going to get to you when we come back. The number 888-318-7884. Father Michael Schmitz is our guest, and we will be right back after this.
Catholic Answers Live. We're here for you.
Howdy folks, this is Jimmy Aiken, and I'm here to tell you about the 20 Answers Challenge. Here's how it works. When you purchase the sampler of all 26 books in the 20 Answers series, we're going to knock 60% off the price. Then you can challenge yourself to finish them all this Lent and Easter season. And this year, to make it easier, we're offering free shipping on the sampler if you live in the continental United States. That's 60% off, free shipping, and over 500 answers to questions you've had about the Catholic faith. Join us this Lent and Easter to take the 20 Answers Challenge, and together we can be part of something great. Call 1-888-291-8000 or visit the shop at Catholic.com now to get your set and begin taking the 20 Answers Challenge today.
Wouldn't it be great to have a book to give to anyone to explain exactly why Catholics believe what we believe? The good news is now there is. Why We're Catholic is the groundbreaking new resource by apologist Trent Horn, that one book you can hand to anyone as a starting point for helping them find their way into or back to the practice of the Catholic faith. In a series of short, easy-to-read chapters, Trent covers the whole range of common topics, starting with why we believe in anything at all and answering all the common objections to the Catholic faith, both doctrinal and moral. Don't miss out on the most important, life-changing book to come along in years. Better yet, it's only $3 a copy when you order in bulk. Order your copies of Why We're Catholic today by calling 1-888-291-8000, visiting the shop at Catholic.com, or asking for it at a good Catholic bookstore near you.
Tim Staples, Trent Horn, Cy Kellett, Chris Check, Carlo Broussard. Our on-fire lineup of speakers will inform and inspire your audience to grow in their Catholic faith. For more information on booking a Catholic Answers speaker for your event, visit CatholicAnswersSpeakers.com today.
Call now with your question. 888-318-7884. This is Catholic Answers Live.
Welcome back to Catholic Answers Live. If you got to spend your Friday afternoon with somebody, it's hard to think of somebody better than Father Mike Schmitz to spend your Friday afternoon with. And we're talking about his brand new book, Made for Love, which I will recommend highly to you. Same-sex attractions in the Catholic Church, full of wisdom, full of love. And despite that, published by Ignatius Press. No, I'm just kidding. Ignatius has, Mark Brumley was here yesterday, the president of Ignatius Press.
Oh yeah,
awesome. Singing your praises and the praises of the book. So let's go. Let's get to those calls. Tony in Chicago, you are on with Father Mike Schmitz. Your question, please. Tony, did I push the wrong button? There you go, Tony.
Father Mike, thanks for taking my call. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my family kind of has a situation with one of our loved ones. My sister was married for 10, 15 years, and she decided, or whatever it is, that, she became a lesbian, and she left her husband, and it's no one in my family ever really. Obviously, we were upset that she left her husband, but no one in my family ever really lashed out at her for her lifestyle. No one in my family ever made any disparaging remarks about her. Nobody ever told her that she wasn't welcome or anything. And she kind of is just adamantly opposed to having anything to do with any of us, simply because of our positions. And I think it's like I'm really enjoying your show here today, because I think it's just kind of highlights some of the aggression that some of the people involved in this lifestyle has. And I think the last caller sort of answered some of my questions, I guess, because it seems like it seems like maybe there's like a hurt inside that people are lashing out with. But the thing, though, that I think today, it's being celebrated so much, and the people are being told in media and in other ways that people who don't go along with it are inherently morally inferior. And it seems that there's now this anger towards people who don't accept the lifestyle. And you know, I know that in a college setting, I've noticed a lot of in-group aggression. Well, a lot of aggression from the gay community towards the Christian groups and towards the Catholic Student Center at the local college that I attended. And I just wonder if there's not some kind of connection or kind of overlap in between the real kind of cultural Marxist type of stuff we see in the media and the gay community, where they're kind of being taught that it's okay to lash out aggressively against people who don't accept their lifestyle.
Okay, Tony, that's a lot, so I want to let you have a chance to respond, Father.
Absolutely. I can think of, there's kind of three things. Thank you, Tony, for that. I really appreciate your insights and what you're bringing up. One of the things that strikes me kind of right away is I remember speaking with a woman whose younger brother had come out to her, and they said, "Are you going to tell mom and dad?" He said, "Of course I'm going to tell mom and dad." And his older sister said to him, "Okay, but you know, the sooner you can accept the fact that mom and dad are going to continue to believe what they believe, because they're Catholic, mom and dad are continue to believe what they believe, the happier you're going to be." And he was like, "Wait, no, no, they have to. Like, I'm their son. They're going to have to change." And she said, and this is such a great, it was a great truth-telling moment between like a sister who loved her brother and brother loved her sister. And she said, "No, if you're going to ask them to accept you, then you have to also be willing to accept them." And it was this great challenging moment where he had to come face to face with, like what you say, is kind of this cultural mindset, which is accept everyone except for those people. and so that's a really unique thing. And actually that same young woman, she works in the entertainment industry. She was sharing with me that while she was on the road, there was, one of the people that she works with is openly gay, and she was saying, "Well, I don't have any problem. I mean, I'm just working with someone. I don't need to do whatever." But they had a day off where they could go to mass, and so she went to mass with another member of the crew, and they came back, and this the man said, "Where have you been?" And they said, "Well, we were at Catholic mass." And she said instantly from that moment on, for the next couple of weeks, he treated her super poorly. And so finally, she's pretty sassy. And so she said, like, "What's going on?" And she said, and the man said, "Well, you said you're Catholic." "Uh-huh." He said, "And I'm gay." She said, "Yeah? Well, you must hate me then." And she was able to, again, this is a sassy woman who has a lot of truth. She's like, "Are you kidding me? I've known you were gay the entire time we've known each other, and I've always treated you well because I like you. The moment you found out I was Catholic, you started treating me poorly." And so and you'll be able to highlight the double standard. And she even then said, "My little brother is gay. So why in the world would you think this?" And it was a good moment of a personal connection, like relationship, highlighting this kind of cultural mindset that we seem to all be under the influence of. And that cultural mindset is, unless you celebrate everything I choose, you must automatically hate me. And I actually think Barna Group did a book a couple years ago called Unchristian. And in that book, they asked people who are not Christian, what words would you use to describe Christians? And they said things like homophobic, bigoted, hypocritical, all these kind of things. And you think, wait, that's the first words that they think of when they think of us. And yet, if you were to ask us, what do you think? What are the first words you think of when you think of the Catholic Church? We'd say grace and love, truth, mercy. And yet, that's what they think. And so, what we have to do is the next step. How do we demonstrate to people who we truly are? That people of grace, people like Jesus, which means, again, as I said before, I don't condemn you, but go and sin no more. So the example, I think, is understanding the depth of someone's shame. How hard it is, I think, for someone to carry this weight for a lot of their life. Not everybody, but for some people. And that is, I remember speaking with a mom whose son had come out to her relatively recently. And she said, "I never understood that I'd sit with him on the edge of his bed, when he was in high school, and he'd just be crying and saying, 'Mom, you don't love me. No one loves me. My siblings don't love me.' And he just in tears. And she would look at him and say, 'Are you kidding me? these people love you, all these people, and look at you, you're so talented, and you're just, all these great things about him. And he said this line, he said, but if you knew who I really was, you wouldn't love me. If you knew the truth about me, you wouldn't love me. And then, years later, he said, I'm gay. And she realized, oh, that was the thing that he thought, he was convinced would disqualify him from their love. And it's so interesting because no one in the family rejected him. No one in the family made jokes about, gay people or anything like this. But he was just so convinced that if I reveal this part of me, everyone who claims to love me will cease to love me. And so in that case, we need to go above and beyond. Now, that's the second piece. The third part is what it almost sounds like with your sister's relationship is not so much that this is strictly speaking a homosexual issue as much as it is, I'm going to break my promises to my spouse, my husband, and I'm going to go live this alternative lifestyle, whether that was with, a guy she ran off with or a gal she ran off with. My sense that I get is, and I don't know, because I don't know your situation, obviously, the sense that I get is that there can be a lot of shame about the fact that she knows she's not living a life that she's been called to, that not the life she promised that she would live. I don't know if it has anything, or I don't know if it has everything to do with the homosexual relationship. But then again, I don't know. That's where I would say common sense could really factor into this a lot.
Tony, thank you. I hope that was helpful. We do have a lot of folks on the line, so I'm going to try to get another call or two in before the top of the hour. Let's go to Timothy in Eugene, Oregon, listening on Modern Day Radio. Timothy, you are on with Father Mike Schmitz.
Yes, hello. I didn't know if I was going to get on or not, but I have a 34-year-old son who came out to me probably in 1999, 2000, when we were sitting around the kitchen table. And I didn't disparage it or anything. I just kind of let it go by. And in 2012, he got married to his partner. And he lives in Virginia, and I live out on the West Coast. And I went on Facebook and kind of posted what I thought the Catholic Church's position was with same-sex marriage. And he messaged me back that he was ashamed of me, and I haven't heard from him since. How can I proceed with? I've sent him Christmas cards, I sent him a birthday card, I called him here recently, and I get no response.
Okay, that's a pretty clear question, Timothy. So I want to because we're running up to the top of the hour, let Father respond.
Yeah, Tim, it sounds like what you're doing is what you should be doing. Is all you can do. So you have to understand, though, too, that your prayers as a dad are super powerful. So, like, you can pray even across the coast, across the continent for your son. I would even just I raise my hands to the east, and just pray over your son. You can do that. The power of a father's blessing, the power of a father's prayer is super powerful. So I'm sure you're praying. So keep on praying, because the story's not over yet. The story is not written yet. And this is a chapter, and it's a dark chapter, but it's not done. Secondly, is keep reaching out to him, because one of the things that I think can happen is like that sense of, I'm going to isolate myself because I'm afraid of being hurt. And I think that could be a real fear that he has. Now, the third thing is, I think this happens more and more, that we are called to love, is that we tell the truth, but we have to also love. We also have to tell the truth. We have to tell the truth in love. And that's what you're doing, Tim. I just invite you to continue to do that as best you can.
Timothy, thank you so much for that question. I'm glad we were able to get that in. Father Mike Schmitz, thank you so much for a really wonderful hour.
Thank you.
May we have your blessing before we go, Father?
Absolutely, man. Mighty God bless you all, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen. The book is from the new book from Father Mike Schmitz is Made for Love, Same-Sex Attractions and the Catholic Church. You can find it at Augustine Institute or Ignatius Press. Either one, it'll be there for you. Thank you so much again, Father, for your time. Thank you, everybody who joined us this week. Jesus Christ is the light of the nations, and we'll see you next time on Catholic Answers Live.